Thanks everybody, and thanks Yasmin. That was an amazing presentation. What a great presentation to follow in terms of the title of our topic, Spirit of the Earth, and relationship we have with energy and the energy transition. So I'm going to start off with a couple of quotes from Albert Einstein, quotes that I've used quite a bit, that I get used quite often, but for me have a lot of meaning. And he's pointing to me to one of the most important sciences that are going to be part of the energy transition. Luckily for all of us, it's not quantum mechanics. It's actually human psychology, how we think, how we feel, how our relationship with the energy and the earth isn't so important. So the first one around our technology outstripping our humanity. When I put this presentation together, I really sat with that one for a little bit, and what did it actually mean? You know, it sort of meant to me that our ability to change the natural world, to manipulate it, to move it into buildings and the structures and the cities and the whole infrastructure that we had is quite powerful. We are powerful beings in terms of changing our environment. But what we might have lost is, and I think the quote is pointing to, is our relationship to the impacts those changes have, to the interconnection of different species and different animals and different people that those changes impact. And I think Einstein is asking us to stop and reflect on that impact, reflect on that connection and that relationship that we have. The second quote, and I probably even use this one even more often, is around the level of thinking that created the problem is not the level of thinking that's going to solve the problem. And that one, you know, I think you can sit with quite a bit. And when you do, at least when I did, I realized I have no idea what the next level of thinking is. And how can you? How can you know what the next level of thinking is that's going to solve the problem if you're not there yet, if you're not in that space? So you have to do a little bit of experimentation, you have to do a little bit of trial and error, you have to sit with some great people and have discussions on what that might look like, what that might more importantly feel like if we're going to actually change the level of thinking, the level of consciousness, the level of being that we're at as part of the energy transition. So luckily we're not alone. The whole globe is looking at this in different ways and different aspects. This, to me, the 2015 UN Sustainability Goals, was actually a really big accomplishment for humanity, in my opinion. This is quite a complex, integrated blueprint for, and how did they say it? Peace and prosperity for people and the planet now and into the future. When you actually go through it and you actually look at it, you say, wow, this is actually a pretty robust document. It has some flaws, it has some complexity to it. But when you think about, you know, some of the other things that we've done, even in my lifetime, like the war on drugs or trickle-down economics, you know, these sort of simplistic solutions, this is actually something that really interconnects well. One of the challenges, though, and I think we all see it in people who work in ESG and sustainability in companies and organizations, can already kind of pick out one of the flaws, and that is also its complexity and goals and trying to meet targets and trying to match metrics and things like that. For me, I think one of the important things is the level of thinking that we need to get to is the ability to meet these goals almost unconsciously, right? You know, it just flows, that we know that the impact on water and the impact on people and the importance of poverty, and we kind of connect and feel that connection in a better way and in a way that actually makes it less difficult to meet these goals, but actually more natural to meet those goals. But we're not there yet. I'm not there yet. I still reflect on my own energy use, my own privileged position in the Canadian economy, the fact that I probably use more than 1.5 planets worth share of my resources, and how do I deal with that? And lots of people are thinking about that, and part of my sneak in of trying to talk about the UN Sustainability Goals is because I really wanted to link into this, which is a nonprofit organization, and they call themselves the Inner Development Goals. That's the name of the group. This group was connected to, and many of the people were involved in generating the UN Sustainability Goals, but they realized that progress towards the UN Sustainability Goals is going slowly, and there's lots of challenges. And they really reflected to themselves and said, why is that? What is needed to help us progress further? And then they realized it's the inner development work. It's what's inside of them. It's what's motivating people. It's, again, what Einstein, I think, is pointing to, the human psychology of the situation. What are we doing? How are we thinking? The goals are, again, we can't help it. We're scientists, and we get reductionists. So there's like 23 different goals. And again, so the metrics and parts like that are in there. But they've also simplified it to top 5 goals. And I really love the flow of those 5 goals, and they're on the board here. And you probably can't read them, so I'll read them out. The first one is being, our relationship to ourself, how we feel, how we are as humans. The second one is thinking, and I really love the fact that they've separated those and they've actually put thinking below being, right? First you being first, and then your thinking, which are connected. They then go into relating, and that is connecting with others, but it's not yet at the point of action. It's really sitting with others. And again, Yasmin's talk was so important. When you sit with energy poverty, when you really try to understand the perspective of those people struggling, that is what I think relating is about. That is about putting yourself in that position and then letting yourself feel what that feels like. The fourth step then is getting into collaborating. It's then talking to people, having the discussions, trying to find the commonalities, trying to build that path forward. And then lastly, acting, right? We get into acting a lot, and there's a lot of doing in arts culture, but to me, I think this flow is really important. But not just to me, because those inner development goals were introduced in April of this year, but 1 month ahead of that, a whole group of EFL leaders came together, and we recognized the same issue. We saw the same problem. We created a group called Spirit of the Earth, and that is a group that is around what is our relationship to the earth. We first started trying to talk about humor and about a way of introducing the topic that was, sorry, I'm laughing because my team members are smiling at me, because we had a lot of fun looking at humor and looking at how we can actually break down the barriers to what we're trying to say in a way that is kind of not as defensive. Humor has a great way of bringing 2 ideas together that you never brought together before, and then triggering something in you. Sometimes that produces laughter, because you're like, well, that's so absurd, but I've never thought of it that way. We're still looking at that, but we've also met every 2 weeks and built this great relationship, this great peer mentoring, where we talk about colonialism, we talk about trauma, we talk about diversity and inclusion in the workplace, and we talk about how that is barriers to doing what we need to do, and how we actually need to do this inner work before we can sometimes do the outer work, or maybe in parallel. While you're doing the outer work, do also this inner work, so that the conflicts, and you could be on the best project in the world, renewable energy, looking at battery storage, really trying to help organizations. But if you have a lot of office politics, if there's a lot going on in your workplace that's kind of tearing you down and beating you up, then how do you reconcile that? How do you do the good work you need to do in that environment? And then how do we think about systems in our workplaces differently? So that's what this group is. It is an experiment. We are trying and looking at different things. We're having some great discussions. And really, anyone in the fellowship is invited to be part of it, to be in these discussions. And anyone here that wants to talk more, there's some pictures of some of the fabulous people that is in our group. And please have a discussion with us. Thank you very much.